So thanks, Alexa, for that lovely intro. So my name is Diana Khoubaeva. Like Alexa said, I'm a research analyst at CYBD. I've been with the lab for 5 years. I support our variety of studies, and I'm currently pursuing my Master's of Social Work at the University of Toronto.
And I'm Michaela Dimmick. I'm a postdoctoral fellow at the Center for Youth Bipolar Disorder. I started at the center almost 10 years ago in 2015, first as a research assistant. At the time, I had very little knowledge of bipolar disorder, but became very quickly fascinated by the illness through interacting with the youth and their families. Since that time, I've completed my PhD in the Department of Pharmacology at the University of Toronto, focusing on suicide risk in youth bipolar disorder. And I'm continuing in this line of research through my fellowship. So today we're going to tell you a bit about the Youth Advisory Committee at our center. And this is really what I enjoy most about working here. Many of the members of the Youth Advisory Committee I've known since 2015. So I'll hand it over to Adam to introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Adam. I am a member of the Youth Advisory Committee, and I've been a member since its inception a couple years ago. I was a patient at CYBD starting around 2015 after a hospitalization at Sunnybrook, and then I was involved in a bunch of research projects as a participant at the center. And then over time, I started becoming more involved. I was super excited to join the Youth Advisory Council when it got started. And so I'm involved in many different projects, both here throughout CAMH, the Center for Complex Interventions. And from a personal perspective, I in the sort of nutrition and health industry. I work as a personal trainer, studying to be a dietitian, and I do research along the lines of nutrition and psychology and mental health.
Thanks. Okay, so I will start by giving everyone an overview of CYBD, the projects we're doing, um, and some of the research that we're doing. So the Center for Youth Bipolar Disorder is a fully integrated clinical and research program that seeks to generate discoveries that are uniquely relevant to youth with bipolar disorder. So our focus is on the full spectrum of bipolar disorder, from biology, studying genetics and brain imaging, to clinical trials of pharmacological and psychotherapeutic interventions. We're also really committed to advocacy, stigma reduction, and education in the field of youth bipolar disorder. And this is a picture of our lovely team from last March at our annual World Bipolar Day Research Symposium. So some background on how CYBD started. So it was established in August of 2009 at Sunnybrook. It was entirely donor funded, and it started as a subspecialty clinic and research program focused on adolescent bipolar disorder. And our research is really emphasizing, the emphasis is on the integration and collaboration, particularly regarding the hard bipolar link. So our overall mission is to improve outcomes for teenagers with bipolar disorder through cutting edge research, treatment, education, and advocacy. So CYBD began with a staff of just 2 people, and now we have a big team of over 20 plus staff. That's including clinician scientists, 10 research staff, which includes social worker, research coordinators, research analysts, and a lab manager. We have several grad students, postdoc fellows, visiting scientists who started in February. We have a part-time genetic analyst and a part-time clinician. And we moved to CAMH in September 2020 and have been here ever since. So these are the main pillars of what we do at CYBD. So again, our focus is on youth bipolar disorder. So we are really interested in generating new discoveries uniquely relevant to youth with bipolar disorder. We really view bipolar disorder as a disease that impacts the mind, brain, and body. Our research focuses on the full spectrum, from validating biomarkers to brain imaging to the vascular causes of BD to finding novel therapeutic approaches, whether that be through our study on dialectical behavioral therapy or our study on improving aerobic exercise, which I'll touch on in a few slides. We also really focus on collaboration. So our collaborations extend from experts in medical fields, not typically that you wouldn't typically associate it with bipolar disorder. So we're really interested in collaborating with experts in cardiology, anesthesiology, and even to mood disorder consumer advocacy groups to our patients and families. And lastly, we really care about education, advocacy, and stigma reduction. So our engagement with consumers and the public includes the Youth Advisory Council, which we'll talk about today, knowledge translation planning, participant focus groups, newsletters, social media, community events, and printed materials. So focusing more on what research we do at CYBD. So we have 8 studies that are approved by the CAMH REB since we started in September 2020. 3 of our studies have a direct impact on how care and treatment is provided. So we have our Youth Bipolar research platform in which participation in this study involves having the youth and a parent or guardian complete gold standard diagnostic interviews with a trained research team member, as well as completing self-reports and then meeting with the psychiatrist. And the information that we collect in the study is shared with the psychiatrist, and it helps with the clinical assessment piece. And it's considered to be the most comprehensive form of assessment. So we use the case ads alongside with collecting genetic samples. Where we also have a dialectical behavioral therapy for youth with BD study, which allows youth to receive 1 year of intensive DBT. And we have 3 certified DBT social workers who provide that therapy. As well as we have our personalized and pragmatic 3-level model of DBT informed care. So that's a new multi-level approach to delivering DBT informed care, where you can receive 3 different levels of DBT based on their preference and on, the severity of symptoms when they come in. And some future directions of research are focusing on exercise. So we had an exercise intervention that I'll talk about further, which involved an exercise expert who was a kinesiologist on our team. We did the pilot study at Sunnybrook, and we're planning to expand it at CAMH. We also have a nitrous oxide treatment for treatment-resistant bipolar depression, which will involve collaboration with the Temerity Center for Therapeutic Brain Intervention and Toronto Western Hospital. We did a pilot trial in adults with BD at Sunnybrook, and we're in the process of now modifying it as a multi-dose 2-site trial. And lastly, we have the vascular interface with brain and neurocognition via the eyes, which is a grant that's currently under review at CAHR, and we're anticipating starting the study in November. And it's an expansion add-on study to a large-scale existing study at CAMH called the TAE cohort study, which will examine vascular metrics, brain imaging, and cognition in youth with a variety of psychiatric disorders. So we'll go through some early patient and family engagement efforts that have happened at CYBD. So we had the SCORE YBD event, which brought together youth patients, parents, a member of the Research Ethics Office, and a representative from the Mood Disorders Association of Ontario. We had that event at Sunnybrook, and we also brought in youth and parent speakers at an annual World Bipolar Day Patient and Family Education Night. We have our newsletter, and we always include content from our youth patients and parents. We also receive as needed consultation from our youth patients and families, around CYB, like the direction we want to take CYBD in, and research. We have our wall of hope, which we'll show you in a moment, and we have our youth. In our exercise study, we had youth and parent co-investigators on a multi-investigator research initiative exercise study. So we really value our youth advisors because they bring their lived experience with bipolar disorder, and they're interested in collaborating with our team with the goal of continually improving the clinical experiences of patients and families at CYBD. And their unique voices help to steer our team towards identifying, what their unmet needs are, creating new opportunities for growth, and making the greatest impact with education, anti-stigma, and advocacy for patients, families, and the community at large. So here are some graphics of our wall of hope. So when you come to the CYBD, to our clinic, you will see a big wall full of beautiful drawings from our patients, all centered around messages of art and inspiring messages of hope and wisdom. As Michaela will talk about later, we have our Youth Advisory Council, which was established in January 2021 with 6 youth advisors, and they have had 8 meetings to date. They also developed a booklet for newly diagnosed patients written by Youth for Youth. We're continuing knowledge translation planning. We're developing a plan with EENet with 3 parents and 2 youth. And the EENet is the evidence exchange network. So we work together to put our research studies into plain language so that we can disseminate them to a wide audience. And then we have youth engagement, from study conceptualization to implementation. So we really value getting youth who complete our studies in for consultation forums before, during, and after treatment studies, so we can really understand their experiences, see what are the unmet needs, and refine our studies so they meet the needs of youth and families. And we always seek input on topics of, what topics to study, feasibility of studies, treatment satisfaction, and preferred aspects and barriers of the studies. We also have our newsletter. So we have, almost 400 subscribers, and we've sent 3 new newsletters so far since we've started at CAMH. We have our World Bipolar Day Research Symposium. The first one was in March of 2021, where we brought together Canadian and international researchers, trainees, and providers to discuss current research in youth bipolar disorder and the vascular bipolar connections. We also had our World Bipolar Day event, which was a free event open to the public, and we had Margaret Trudeau as our keynote speaker. And again, because we value collaboration, we also collaborate with CREST-BD, which is a fantastic research team in British Columbia who also focus on bipolar disorder. And they also value collaborative research and active engagement and knowledge translation with patients with BD. So I'll talk some more about what patient and family engagement and research has looked like at CYBD in the context of our exercise intervention study, which is titled Towards Exercise as Medicine for Adolescents with Bipolar Disorder, or TBD. And the goal of that study was to improve cardiovascular or heart fitness and exercise in youth with bipolar disorder, and tailoring the intervention to their specific needs and wants. And the reason we were interested in an exercise intervention is because there's a large body of research that shows that bipolar disorder is linked with heart health. Research also shows that individuals with bipolar disorder are less physically active on average compared to the general population. You might know that exercise is beneficial for improving both your mental and physical health. And we recognize that there's a need for additional add-on treatments for bipolar disorder to target symptoms that might persist even with medication or therapy. So this is just a snapshot of what the study looked like. So it was a 24-week study with a first 12 weeks, the youth received the intervention, which included the blue components that you see here. So psychoeducation about why exercise is important, motivation enhancement sessions, phone calls, as well as aerobic fitness testing and measuring their physical activity. And they had the option to engage in additional exercise coaching with our registered kinesiologist. They could involve family in their counseling sessions, and they could engage in peer support with other participants in the study. And this study was had a patient and family informed design. So before the study even started, before we even made a grant for the study, we sent out surveys to patients, families, and friends of patients to understand what their needs are with regard to exercise, what they would want from an exercise intervention, what would help them to actually engage in exercise. And then when we were developing the grant at Sunnybrook, we involved a youth patient as well as a parent of a patient in the grant development so that we really had that youth and family voice as we were making the intervention. And we also involved our patient and parent co-investigators in continual knowledge translation and dissemination activities during the study. And here are some of the knowledge translation and dissemination activities that we did in the TeamBD study. So we made blog posts and did a webinar with CREST-BD. Our youth, patient, and parent co-investigators created some wonderful videos talking about why exercise is important and how this intervention can help youth with bipolar disorder. We had post-study consultation forums where youth, after they completed the study, they could come back and share their experiences with the study, their perspectives, what the barriers were, and we're going to use that information to really tailor future studies. And we also we invited our patient and parent co-investigators to join into peer helping us or publishing research study findings. So some future directions with TeamBD we have the goal of refining the intervention to improve the efficacy of the treatment. And in our next study, we're hoping to focus on the real-time assessment and correlations between mood, energy, activity, and sleep in the context of helping youth to improve their exercise. And again, we're going to really focus on getting the patient and family collaboration through getting their input on the research design, in the grant development, potentially creating a space for them to offer peer support to participants, and continuing our integrated knowledge translation and dissemination activities.
So the Youth Advisory Committee was launched in January of 2021, and this began as a group of 6 youth with lived experience of bipolar disorder, each of whom had been actively involved in treatment and research at the Center for Youth Bipolar Disorder for at least 2 years. The youth advisors bring their lived experience with bipolar disorder to collaborate with CYBD team members with the overall goal of improving lives of others with bipolar disorder. Slide, please. So through the Youth Advisory, we'd hope to have an active partnership, again, with the members, so the various students, trainees, research and research staff at the Center for Youth Bipolar Disorder. We were particularly interested in having the youth participate in activities and focus on a project that they thought would be most beneficial to other youth and individuals with bipolar disorder. We were also interested in having youth help us with disseminating our research findings and advocating for youth bipolar disorder. Slide, please. So the Youth Advisory Committee meets every other month virtually for 1 hour. These sessions are led by a research coordinator and a social worker with our group. Myself and Dr. Benjamin Goldstein, the director of the Center for Youth Bipolar Disorder, also attend these meetings. And the youth are presented with opportunities at CAMH and at other institutions for participation if they are interested. And then the remainder of these sessions are dedicated to, in the first section of the term, brainstorming, and then later working towards a project of their choice. So next slide, please. The first project that the Youth Advisory collaborated on was to make a booklet for youth with bipolar disorder, by youth with bipolar disorder. So this project is unique because the book was planned, developed, and published for youth by youth in collaboration with members from the Center for Youth Bipolar Disorder. And the book covered a variety of themes, including myth-busting, self-care, and inspirational quotes and stories from those with lived experience. So we think this booklet is a key example of how our youth advisors have used their voices to address an unmet need and to positively impact, honor, and support others who are also affected with bipolar disorder. So the overall purpose of this booklet was for youth to have an opportunity to share their lived experiences of bipolar disorder with other individuals who also have bipolar disorder, along with anyone else who wants to learn, such as family members and friends. This book was created with the intention of reducing that feeling of loneliness that youth may have experienced or are currently experiencing. So no matter where someone is in their journey, the hope is that this work helps to show that living with bipolar disorder can be managed in a way that allows you to lead a remarkable and fulfilling life. Slide, please. So I'm just going to go over some of the general themes that the youth had come up with. So the questions are asked in the booklet, and then there are responses from several youth with their narratives for these various questions. So the first chapter in the booklet focuses on stigma. So youth wrote about self-stigma before and after diagnosis, as well as stigma from family members and friends, and how they navigated this stigma. Slide, please. The second chapter in this book focuses on diagnosis and treatment of bipolar disorder. So the youth reflected on their own experiences of being diagnosed with bipolar disorder, what that was like for them. They also wrote about their course of illness and how they managed their symptoms, as well as their experiences with medications. Slide, please. Continuing on this theme, there were questions around therapy. The youth wrote about their experiences in hospital, interacting with various members of their care team. They also talked about their interactions in therapy and finding a therapist and provide advice and guidance for navigating this. Slide, please. Another theme in the booklet was around strategies and skills that the youth had gained for managing mood symptoms, for dealing with social situations as youth with bipolar disorder, and also for getting and eliciting support from friends and family. The next section of this booklet focuses on school and work, with youth reflecting on strategies for being successful, both in new and existing roles at school and work, as well as advice for coping with stressors that come up in school and work, and how to manage mood symptoms during these stressful periods. And the last section included a range of topics such as advice from others, the stigma of bipolar disorder as an illness compared to other psychiatric disorders such as depression, their thoughts about why there should be increased awareness of bipolar disorder, as well as themes and messages of hope for youth receiving a diagnosis of bipolar disorder, as well as messages of hope for their family members. So the booklet can be found on our website, and since the beginning of this year, the PDF version has been downloaded 88 times, which is very exciting. We've been giving the booklet out to youth that come to us clinically at the Center for Youth Bipolar Disorder. We've also been sharing this booklet at our annual World Bipolar Day. This photo on the left is a photo of two of our Youth Advisory Committee's members handing out the booklet. And since this September, we have introduced a new cohort of the Youth Advisory. So this is comprised of 3 members from the original group, alongside 3 new members. The remaining 3 members from the first term are now alumni. And the current Youth Advisory Council is focusing on educating the public about bipolar disorder, the ongoing research projects and findings from these research projects at the Center for Youth Bipolar Disorder. So these may take the form of video interviews with the youth advisors and researchers here at our center, about research findings and specifically what's important about these findings for other youth with bipolar disorder. The 3 members of the Youth Advisory Council who are no longer on the current term are now alumni. They didn't want to say farewell, so we established this Youth Advisory Council alumni so that it can be sort of a bye for now situation. We plan to reach out to these youth when needed for input on various projects. And although we're still in the early phases, we hope to build a community of alumni over the years. So with that, I'd just like to thank all of our patients, participants and their families, as well as our funders, and everyone at the Center for Youth Bipolar Disorder. And I will just hand it over now to Adam to reflect on his experience as serving as a youth advisor.
Muted, of course. So thank you, Michaela. So yeah, my name's Adam. I've been a patient at CYBD since 2015. After I was hospitalized with a manic episode at Sunnybrook and brought to Sunnybrook. And as a patient there, I was involved in many research projects, which was a little bit intimidating at first. I really felt like I was just a patient, a bit of a lab rat. And I wasn't particularly open with my experiences and involved with the center too much. But after a while, I became more involved, and I realized that I went beyond the label of a patient, and rather someone with lived experience that could use that knowledge to result in tangible mental health outcomes and help others. And so I didn't really get involved until around 2020-ish, where I joined the Youth Advisory Council, and then I also did a speech at World Bipolar Day, and that was a very relieving and very great process. So the process of creating this booklet, so as Michaela said, there were 6 of us that have been patients at CYBD, and we worked for a long time alongside many other staff at CYBD. And although it's saying written by youth for youth, and it was definitely youth-led, the staff at CYBD definitely played a huge role. And it was a very collaborative process. I can't remember exactly how we came to this book, but we had a priority of enhancing the patient experience at CYBD. And so in general, there was a shared sentiment that coming into CYBD or being diagnosed for the first time is an exceptionally scary process where you can feel alone. In the beginning of the booklet, we write that there's 46 million people or more with bipolar disorder, but coming into there, it really feels like it's just you. And so thus came the title, Never Alone, of the book. And so the concept was, we thought about going back when we were first diagnosed and what could be useful to us. And there's always handouts about bipolar disorder and the incidence and what are the outcomes or risk of certain what are the risks associated with that. But we felt like it would be very useful to us as patients if we could have a book that was written by youth or youth to show that there's hope, and that everyone has a unique experience that in many of our cases resulted in productive and good lives. And so we tried to make it as interactive as possible. So we did a piece after sharing our narratives. We did a part where you could write your own story saying what's on your mind, and we thought that would be an important part, because storytelling and writing your own story can be an important part of recovery. And yeah, stories can be super useful. And I think that many of us, and definitely I feel that sort of we were pretty lucky to be in the position we were, although we were diagnosed with bipolar disorder, I've been diagnosed, but we're super lucky to have great care and be able to be in a good enough place that we could write a book like this and produce something that could help others. And so we were hoping that for its impact, that it could really just help anyone in any way, especially youth being diagnosed for the first time. And I remember that at the World Bipolar Day event this past year, when we were handing out the booklets, we were handing them out, and there was clearly a youth that was coming by, and we said, "Oh, here's this booklet that we made for youth by youth." And she said, "Oh, I'm a youth with bipolar disorder," and she got super excited and took the book. And so, it's those little things that show its impact. And although we can't directly see the impact that it's having on all those 88 people who have downloaded it, or how many people and the people who have received the book itself, it feels good to know that those people hopefully can benefit in any way from the book. And I think it's also a good way to realize that that getting involved in mental health advocacy, perhaps with the Youth Advisory Council or anywhere else, is a super beneficial process. I found that to be really helpful for me. So even being involved in writing this book has selfishly for me been therapeutic in many ways. And it's also cool to see that many of the people involved in writing the book are becoming practitioners themselves, like doctor, social worker, dietitian. So showing that you can be a patient with bipolar disorder and have certain struggles, and but at the same time, use that and become someone who can help others as well. And so, yeah, I think the whole process was a great process, and I'm super excited about what else we can do with the Youth Advisory Council. And yeah, read the book, download the book, and yeah. Michaela, anything else?
Thanks, Adam. That was great.